presenter is Dr. Karen Irving from Department of Teaching and Learning, and her presentation tonight is STEM Educator Visits to UNESA. That's State University of Surabaya and Philippines Normal University. That's her recent visit. So Dr. Irving is an associate professor in the School of Teaching and Learning. She earned her bachelor and master's degree in chemistry. And recently, Dr. Irving was appointed to serve on the Ohio Science Standard Review Committee by Ohio Senate President Keith Faber. So, without further ado, we would like to... Oh, the food frozen? Okay.
Yeah. So we're waiting to unpack to all of you, and thank you so much for the invitation to speak with you today. I wanted to tell you about my recent visit, which was my first visit to Indonesia. And then on the way home, I stopped in Manila for a half a day and visited the Philippines Normal University, too. So this is not about a dissertation and not about research questions and not about finding, it's a travelogue. This is a travelogue, so much more lighthearted. So this is where I went, UNESA, which is the Surabaya State University in Surabaya, Indonesia. I have a former student, many of you may remember Haritza. She did her MA. So I went to visit her in Pontianak in West Kalimantan, and then went back to Jakarta and then to the Philippine Normal University in Manila on my way back to Columbus. So I had prepared this map for my students in one of my classes that I was taking, because you all know where Indonesia was, and you all know all the part, but they didn't. So I put in the equator, and then the locations of the places that I went to visit. And so the fun thing about Pontianak is that it's on the equator.
Yes.
Which was, it's my first time south.
I've never been there before.
Yes.
I've never been there before.
Well, and so I'd never crossed the equator before. So now I have been in the southern hemisphere,
0 degree.
and I have been to the equator. And then the Philippines, again, you guys know where that is, but on Luzon, right there.
Okay.
So this was the itinerary. It was a 2-week trip, and actually I combined it with a presentation at the National Science Teachers Association meeting in Chicago. So I left here on a Wednesday morning and presented on Thursday. Vinto was there at the presentation. And then on Friday morning, started that trek over to Jakarta from Chicago to Narita, from Narita to Jakarta, overnight in Jakarta on Saturday night. That's one of those, you've done this trip. Maybe you all haven't gone that way, but you have this day that sort of vanishes from your life. It was there and then it's gone, and then time is moved forward and it's replaced by this day that never ends.
And for some
on the
reason,
return trip,
like Dickie seems to have an especially sadistic travel agency. They book them like with these really long stopovers, like 18 hours in Singapore. I mean, you've gone like 45 minutes and then you're waiting for about a day. So I don't know why that is, but we always
cheaper.
Maybe it's like $10 cheaper. For whatever reason, when people come in, we always say, what route did you take, and where did you transit? And DIFTY-funded travelers always have 48 hours travel time. So
Wow.
It's horrendous.
10 flights in 14 days.
Yep.
They didn't lose my luggage ever.
Okay.
That was a
That's quite an
congratulations
accomplishment.
to the airlines. All Nippon Airlines on the way over and Philippine Air on the way back. And I would take the All Nippon Airlines first and then the Philippine Airlines. So this were my hosts at UNESA, and we're standing outside the aviary that is located on the campus. This is Dr. Youssef Fouad. He is a mathematics education professor and also the head of their international office. And Ms. Soroya, who is a lecturer, who is working with him and is the one who had to do the stuff, pick me up and get me there and make sure that all the arrangements were in place.
I'm going to talk to you about Zora.
Right. So these were the people, and I don't have, they took pictures of everything. There were people always standing around with cameras. But I often didn't have my camera out there included in the picture. So there were lots of pictures of these events, but I don't have pictures of all of them. I met with Professor Warsono, who's the rector of the university, the very first morning, and we drank a lot of tea. And then other individuals that I met with are Professor Buniyasa, who's in charge of their postgraduate programs, and then Dr. Fuad, whose picture you've already seen, and Dr. Siswono, am I saying that name right? Who is the Senior Lecturer of Mathematics Education and the Vice Dean of Student Affairs. There were a lot of other people that I met too, but these people gave me their business cards, so that's why I can remember who they are and what their name is. So one of the things that I've learned is that you need to get a business card and then take a picture of the person with the card right there, so you know. And I actually did sit with Soraya at one point and say, okay, now tell me who these people are again. So I need to keep track of all the individuals that I'm meeting. I gave a lot of talks, so I met with them first on a Monday morning, and each day I gave a talk to different groups. I talked to them about innovations in science and mathematics teaching and learning. They were very interested in publication. The rule has come down that every professor needs to publish one paper a year in a first or second tier international journal. And so they were anxious to do that. They had been told to prepare a draft. There were like 30 people who had drafts, and they somehow thought I was going to read the drafts and give feedback, right? Which I was shocked to find that out, because that was not going to happen. So I was prepared to talk with them about publication in different journals, and the kind of the message I tried to give them is probably the same message that you have been getting here, and that this is a long process. I tried to make the analogy that it's like playing on the local intramural soccer team, football team, and then playing in the World Cup. There's a lot of steps in between, and so, you know, suggested writing proposals for conferences first and getting them accepted, reviewing a lot of proposals for conference. They're always looking for proposal reviewers. There's a good way to see different quality of writing, see what good writing looks like, see what poor writing looks like. Write every opportunity you get. When the professor assigns a paper to write, think, okay, here's another opportunity to improve my writing skill. Write for publication at every opportunity. Write for the church journal. Write for the international office journal. Write for every time you get a chance to write, and then get people to read your writing for you. And then you read as well. That's usually the only way you get someone to read for you, because they need somebody to read for them too. So you get a partner. You say, okay, we're just going to be the writing-reading buddies. You read my stuff, I'll read your stuff. Then you need to be honest with that person. That's often the hardest part of all. So I was telling my students, I have a deadline for tonight for a chapter that I've written for a book. I got the reviews back about 3 weeks ago, and one of the reviewers loved it. And I'm going to frame that review and put it on the wall. Ready for publication as is, no edits necessary.
Wow.
I was like, oh, that's great, wonderful.
And that person's the right person. They're correct.
Well, the second reviewer was not the same person as the first reviewer, and it was good, but the second reviewer really found the weaknesses in the article. And so as much as I didn't like reading that part, it's the second reviewer that will make my writing a better article, not the first one. The first one makes me feel good, but the second one actually improves my writing. And so, the reality was, you know, I was just like everybody else. I had submitted that at the last day that it was due, just before the deadline, and it was as good as I could get it at that point. But I knew when I submitted it that there were some things in there that if I had another 2 or 3 days, I would have changed. And that second reviewer nailed them all. As I was reading those reviews, after I got over getting irked about the reviews, I was like, oh yeah, there was that part. I did think about that. And so now I've had 3 weeks, and it's better. And I've written back the comments to the author, and so if it finally gets accepted and published in that book, it will represent me professionally better than the first article. So even though that person thought they were doing a nice thing, and I'm assuming they gave me their honest opinion, if you want to get better, you really need a buddy who will read for you and will tell you when it needs to be improved. If it's confusing and you don't understand, you need to say, I don't get this. I don't understand. What was the point of the paragraph? I'm confused here. I lost it. This word doesn't seem like it fits. You have to develop, and then you've got to get a thick enough skin that you can read that yourself and use that information to get better. So that was kind of the gist of that article. And then at PNU, I gave this was the same talk I'd given in Chicago, so that was really easy. technology-assisted formative assessment. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in how teachers can gather reliable information from students during class and then use that information while the class still goes on to improve the learning experience for the students. That's a very complex task because you have to be thinking the whole time you're teaching, you have to have some reliable feedback from the students, and then you've got to know what to do with it right away. Usually we know what to do with it 2 days later. We think, oh, I should have done that. That would have been really helpful. So developing that level of expertise so that you can do it while you're teaching is what, in my view, distinguishes a really superior teacher from just being a good teacher. So that talk was what I gave to the people in PMU. So here's me. They included classroom visits, and this was really interesting. Some of the things that I learned from these classroom visits was that the classrooms were not air conditioned, and it's really, really hot in Surabaya, even in March. I mean, I cannot even imagine what it's like in Surabaya in the summer, but maybe it is the same.
They're
right?
mostly the
Right,
same all the time.
See, that's that northern hemisphere brain thinking that it must be warmer in the summer. It's just really, really hot. So no air conditioning and really hot temperatures means lots of open windows. And lots of open windows and lots of people outside means lots of noise. So I found the classrooms noisy. I was surprised at the amount of noise I could hear from the courtyard and the areas outside the classroom. And so that, just comparing it to here, if somebody walks down the hall outside my room and they're having a conversation, I go close the door because that sound I find distracting from the lesson. But at this university, you obviously can't do that. You're not going to close up the room because somebody wants to have a conversation outside your room.
They are accustomed to.
Excuse me?
They are accustomed.
They're used to it, exactly.
They're
This
used
is the normal, it's the normal teaching and learning. So this was a science classroom, and they were doing a lesson on sound. These were pre-service teachers who were going to be teaching, become science teachers. And so I thought it was a nicely done lesson. They had recorders and guitars, and on their cell phones, they had a sound generating device. And so I was impressed at how the teacher had brought in a lot of hands-on type things to include in the lesson for her students that day. There's a professional development school on campus, and so my visits to classrooms included going to that professional development, and so here we're doing OHIO because we did that in every class. So you have your little conversation, you repeat the same thing, and then you teach them how to do OHIO. Apparently there was something in front of the phone, so there's a finger maybe, somebody else was taking this picture, so that was there. These were the administrators of that school, and again, everybody just wanted a picture with the American person who was there. Very, very beautiful campus, lots of lovely scenery. More children. This was an advanced level class, and so their English language skills were pretty good, I thought, for the age group that they were at that school. This again was the professional development school. It's right on the campus with UNESA. As an opportunity. Did all of you student teach in professional development schools? Is that common?
No, not really. Only big universities have those. They have like the laboratory school where the
Right.
teachers or teachers.
So I don't know if you know that Ramsar Hall used to be a
High
professional
school.
development school at Ohio State.
Yeah.
If you walk through that building, you'll see the lockers in the hall. That's from when that was a high school. That was way back in the 70s, maybe 60s or 70s, and did not last terribly long.
So you invite students to come or the teacher?
My understanding is that the students who attended that building were the children of faculty, and it was small. Think about how big Ohio State is. There were not enough student teaching experiences for our students to get a real experience in teaching. And that the students who were there were not typical of the students that they would be teaching once they left the university. They were the children of professors. So these were not normal kids. Think about your own children. These are not, these are the children of academically capable parents. And so when you send your student teachers out into the world, they're going to teach the whole range.
I think it's like in
student ability.
Indonesia, when I did my undergraduate degree, I have toward the end of my study before writing my dissertation, we have like 2 months field
Right,
teaching experience
right,
in school. So we
right,
have like 2 months, and then we teach there
right.
with other teachers. You know what I mean?
They
Yeah.
also, like some of the classes will have 500 student teachers, like they had to find 500 placements,
Right,
so they would never have enough PDSs.
right, that's the problem here. I mean, it's a combination of that being too small a place, so that there are not enough student teaching opportunities for all of the students who are in our program. The students who are there are not typical of the students that we're trying to train our teachers to teach. And then the other issue with the professional development school on our campus was the status of the faculty who were in that building. They were not considered faculty at the university because they were high school teachers. But they weren't really high school teachers because they were in a building that was part of the university. And so it put them in an awkward position in terms of their professional status. It was hard to get staff and keep it staffed because the teachers were not comfortable with the status or position that they were assigned within the university community. So for a lot of those reasons, our PD school closed and Ramsar Hall became offices and classrooms. So you all know dragon fruit, but I had never seen dragon fruit before. That was my first morning there that Sunday. I was like, whoa, that's beautiful. And so you know what the inside of it looks like, but I was surprised to see what was inside that absolutely beautiful fruit. Jackfruit.
You find it here.
Again, we don't find jackfruit here in Ohio. I don't think it grows in the country.
No,
I've
we
never
import
seen
it.
it before.
It grows in the freezer.
In the-
In the can.
Oh,
Oh,
they have it.
And then the individual and actually Dr. Fly brought me some from the grocery store.
You like it?
all wrapped up. Yes, it was very tasty. It was very tasty. So that was a brand new experience for me.
oh.
This was
Flying
the
fish.
most amazing. So have you eaten fish like this? in the
Yeah,
school?
yeah.
Really? Is that the way fried fish usually comes?
Yeah.
Not usually,
Not
but
usually,
some
but
places
some places.
they make it.
How does
Yeah,
the
it's
chef,
stylish
how
like
does the
that.
skeleton not just fall apart in the pot?
You have to deep fry it.
But the bones stay together like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what fried fish is like here. It comes in the freezer department and it's square.
Like
You can't notice that there was ever a
We don't
fish
usually
attached.
have it
Filet,
in
it's like
that
filet.
way.
It was
Yeah.
like
filet.
completely
Filet, then
just
all this
separated. So when I ordered fried fish, I thought, oh, safe, it's cooked. It'll be okay, how it is when you go someplace new with the stomach. And then this showed up. I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Everybody I've showed that to, the Americans that I've shown it to, was like, oh, it's totally amazing. Demonstrates incredible skill on our thought of the chef because none of us could do that. And then the desserts were fabulous. I had lived in Japan for 3 years, many years ago, and I'd forgotten about the fabulous European bakeries in Japan and how good the food is and how less sweet it is than American food, which is too sweet. Just too much sugar and everything. And so that was fun at meals, getting to make all these great desserts. The first day, Dr. Fawn took me to the mud volcano. Do you know about the mud volcano?
Lapindo.
So I walked in heels, I might add.
Oh, in heels, no.
From here.
Celia.
And so you walked over a little creek, and then you walked up these
did they make it
steps,
too?
and up those steps, and up those steps, and up those steps. It was like 3 stories tall. It was huge.
Yeah.
And there were missing pieces, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope it can take my body weight, because I'm a lot bigger than these other people. And so there we are at the top, which was just really astounding. I've never seen anything like that. And again, I've told this story to a lot of my American friends, and they almost always say, well, where's the mud coming from? And so my silly answer to that is it's clearly coming from Florida. It's clearly, well, first of all, it's on the other side of the world, so that makes good sense. And then do you know about sinkholes? Do you know about American sinkholes?
Sinkhole.
So sinkholes are where the ground's there one day, and the next day, like the house is in the earth, like it's opened up and whatever was sitting. So I've decided that the stuff that used to be there must have gone down.
To
And it's
Indonesia.
coming up. It's coming up outside Surabaya in the morning. But that is, by the way, not the answer to that, but it seems like a pretty silly answer. This was amazing. I knew not anything about it, so of course Wikipedia gave me a lot of detail. details about the mud volcano. This is a picture from way back in 2006 when this event started. And you can see where they had built the barriers. I understand that the whole road between Surabaya and some other city has completely been swallowed. 3 villages have been swallowed, and it's still coming out of the ground. So I figure that road and that railroad that I crossed over are probably under threat from this event too. I don't know, it's pretty amazing. The Alana Hotel, thank you. That was a wonderful, wonderful place. It had a very modern. Okay, Pontianak, Borneo. This is Risa and Risa's husband. They met me at the airport. The airport was fun. It was small, and probably the most amusing part of the airport was the luggage. So you know how a conveyor belt comes out of the wall and it has your suitcase and it goes around, it goes back in the wall again? Not at Pontianak Airport. At Pontianak Airport it comes straight out of the wall and it wraps back into the wall again. So when you get to the end, the luggage just falls off on the floor. So I'm standing there looking at it thinking, oh my goodness. And everyone's rushing forward to try to grab their suitcase before it falls off on the floor in the end. I thought, well, that's an interesting luggage arrangement. But it worked just fine. My luggage was there. And that's another advantage of being the big American. When you move through the crowd, it parts. We visited Risa's school. She teaches at a junior high school in Pontianak City. And she helped me. I used Google Translates to try to translate the words in that sign. They did not come out like this, but I sent her an email and she helped me get what the meaning of those places were. We visited with headmistress, who I think was the lady sitting next to me, and some other, that's Risa over there. And that was, again, it was built on a courtyard design. This probably all makes perfect sense to all of you. We do have schools in this country built on the courtyard design and outside too, if you go down south. So I've seen buildings like that in the Carolinas and Florida. Clearly in Ohio it doesn't make a lot of sense. Her classroom, we did do OHIO, but I didn't get a picture. So her students were, of course, she told them a lot about coming to Ohio and about her experience. So it was fun to see a real person from Ohio come back the other way. We visited the teacher workroom. That was very interesting because our teacher workrooms in schools are a little different. This was a large communal open space. She talked a little bit about the frustration that she had in trying to bring the ideas back to the teaching staff at her school that she had learned here. And this may be something that you have experienced or will experience too. You go abroad and you get all these brilliant ideas and then you come home and nobody really wants to hear them. They really just want to keep on doing what they've already been doing, and they certainly don't see how what you learned in that other place far away with other different people could apply in the setting that you're
Yes, they
located
just keep it for
in.
you. They said just keep it for you.
Keep it to yourself.
Right.
They said yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so of course we had to do this, and she actually, this is posted on the OHU website now.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The OHIO at Risa's school. We went to the Equator Monument. So there is an Equator Monument there. This was the outside of the monument in Pontianak. And there we are standing inside the monument with the inside representation behind us. And this is the part I love the best because I'm sure, again, maybe this isn't something that's taught in Indonesia, but in our schools, we have to teach our children that there's not really a line on the earth. Because there always is one in the book, and there's always one on the globe, and so that's part of the lesson, is no, the line is not on the floor. Well, it is. I stood on the equator. So I texted that picture to my daughter, who's in Seattle, and she said, so, was it colder on the northern hemisphere?
It's one step to the left.
Yes, exactly. Over here I'm in the north, and over here I'm in the south. And I didn't actually think to check when I was there because it didn't dawn on me. But I can tell you that it's not. It's really, really hot on both sides.
Both sides of the line.
Yeah. We went to the Indonesian Agency for Agricultural Research and Development at West Kalimantan. This was very interesting. Reese's college friend is a biologist, and she
Okay.
works at this site, and so she very kindly took me on a tour. They are doing research with aloe, the aloe plant. So there were drinks. Actually, when I checked into the hotel in Pontianak, they gave me a cool drink, which was made from aloe. These were a lot of the different varieties that they were looking at, and then this is one of the larger varieties. The
Yeah.
gentleman was one of the researchers there also. They took us into a cold room area where they were growing little baby plants, trying different varieties, looking at the growing conditions. I saw like a pilot plant area for grinding up, and I think the next picture here is showing you an individual leaf. So the leaves at the bottom, when they turn kind of brownish yellow, you can harvest them, and they're full of a sap. A lot of Americans will keep this in the kitchen. You grow a small plant of aloe on your kitchen windowsill, and if you burn yourself while you're cooking, people will cut the aloe and put the sap on the burn. It's supposed to heal the burn better. So they chop up the leaf, remove the sap, centrifuge it to remove the solids from the liquids, and then use the liquids to create these drinks or put in makeup or medicines. And then the solids are marketed, and I'm not really sure what they do, but he showed me a package that had the plant part, the starch part that makes up the body of the plant. So that was, I'm a scientist, so that was really, maybe you don't know that, I'm a chemist. So that was very interesting, this particular visit. These are, and again, the croton plant over on the right. These plants here are always in a pot. You can't grow them in Ohio. It's way too cold here. But there they were almost tree size, so I was amazed to see such a large plant. They had orchid research also. They were growing a lot of different orchids, and now when I walk in Kroger and I see all those orchids for sale, I wonder if they're coming from places like Indonesia. So tell me about the bird. So this bird was all over. You need to tell me, who's the bird and why is it there? Is this a symbol in Indonesia? I saw it at the Equator Museum as well. This bird with the thing on the top
It's a
of his
native
head?
bird in Kalimantan, I think.
A magic bird?
No, a
Native
native bird.
Native.
Oh, a native bird. Yeah, I thought it was.
Don't remember the name though.
And this
Kantong
was
semua.
amazing. Can you see this piece right here?
Yeah.
It's eating.
It
It's the
must have
insect
been that
eating.
big.
Insect eating.
Yeah.
They said it was a Venus flytrap.
Yeah.
Well, so I've never seen a Venus flytrap where the whole plant was that big, much less the trap of the Venus flytrap. Your hand could get lost in that thing. I mean, I guess I thought that the only thing that would fit in there would be like a little housefly. When I think of Venus flytrap, I think of it trapping the tiny little houseflies that we have here. So that was like out of the movies, this man-eating plant. That was huge. Other things that were at that agricultural research station were tropical fish. They were raising the kind of tropical fish that we see for sale at Walmart or a fish store in the U.S. And again, I'm assuming that's for export, for crops, for developing an industry to make some money. On Saturday, I left Borneo and flew back to Jakarta. On Sunday, I got on the Philippines airline flight and flew to Manila. I gave a talk on Monday morning at the Philippine Normal University. I have no pictures from that. I was late getting picked up from the hotel and only had like 3 hours to start with, so that was just hugely rushed. Have you shared with them, so the Philippines is changing the number of years of required high school education, adding a year to what's required. Think for a minute about the impact that has on a university. For 1 year, there'll be no freshmen coming into university. And so the faculty who are teaching freshmen at their universities will have a year with no students.
Oh, wow.
So this is an opportunity for us, which is part of the reason why I was there, to encourage them to come to the United States and do postdocs. If they don't have a doctoral degree, to come and get started on one, to do visiting scholar kind of work, to develop relationships between the two universities. They are very interested in doing it. Latrice, Dr. I forget her last name.
Kurdisk.
Yeah, she had been here about a year ago, and I met with her in my office. And so she was the one that picked me up at the hotel and introduced me to the rest of the faculty. So I definitely think we have potential there. And that's the end of it. So that was the intro. Questions?
It's mine or
It's
yours?
yours, I think. I think mine's over here. Questions?
So what was the reason behind that addition, 1-year addition to the high school education?
I'm guessing, but I think it's to make it articulate better with other universities around the world. So there's a problem. So we have run into this problem with the Indian students as well. Their undergraduate's only 3 years.
Mhm.
So when they come here for graduate school, they don't have 4 years of an undergraduate degree. And that upsets our graduate school, our graduate admissions, because they perceive that they haven't had enough education yet to start at the graduate level. So I think that the Philippines wants to bring their high school education more in line with the universities in the US and probably the UK and probably Australia, where their students go to do university.
12 years public schooling.
12
Oh, so it was,
years.
previously it was not 12 years?
it's not.
11.
11? Oh, okay.
You know, I think that same thing is going to come to us. I don't know if you've been following the situation in this country, but there have been suggestions that freshman and sophomore year be free education at community colleges.
Yeah,
President
yeah,
Obama
yeah. The
has
first
made
2
that
years, yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah.
And there are more and more dual, what do they call them? It's not dual degree, it's dual credit offerings. So my daughter, when she started college, and that was 10 years ago, started with a full semester of college credit that she earned from her high school coursework. That saved me a huge amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
She graduated a semester early. I didn't have to pay a whole semester's tuition, room and board, books, the whole 9 yards. It's not uncommon at all for children now to graduate with a full year of university education, having already been completed at high school, which is free.
Mhm.
Well, those are students that would be enrolling in our courses, and they're not going to need to enroll in those courses. They're going to need to start at the sophomore level. So it's already, arts and sciences is already feeling it. The enrollment is dropping in their freshman courses. And I can foresee at some time in the future that a normal education for students will include 12 years of high school and 2 years of post-high school, and all of that will be free. All of that will be covered by tax money. That's going to make places like Ohio State have to completely rethink what we do. And probably what will happen is what's already happening with us too, our graduate programs are growing. So more and more people are getting master's degrees, more and more people are getting PhDs, but it'll require a shift in resources and a shift in offerings as the population changes their educational opportunities.
I have more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting. So I was wondering, after your short visit, what sort of opportunity that you see, like one of the biggest opportunities for Indonesian teachers to improve their teaching quality or to improve their, I don't know, like their classroom environment or anything compared to U.S.
Yeah,
situation?
that's hard for me to comment on after only three
Yeah,
days of
yeah.
visit. Dr. Fogg was talking about the difficulty at UNESA getting students to do what you guys have done, which is to be brave enough to get on an airplane and go far away to a really foreign culture, to experience new ideas and bring them back. He would like more people to do that. We would certainly like more students from Indonesia to come here. I think it's in our best interest to form strong ties with your country. And education is certainly one way to do that. So I would say, increasing international exchange with a variety of places. We don't have all the answers. We never pretend to have all the answers. Bringing in answers from lots of different places is the best way to sort out what answers make sense for Indonesia. And, you're going to have, that's work that has to be done by the people in Indonesia. but bringing lots of ideas to the table is a good way to start. Do you guys know about the Turkey experiment? What the Turkish country did? Some years ago, it was when I first came to Ohio State, so about 12 or 13 years ago, Turkey applied for and got World Bank money to send 500 scholars from Turkey out for postgraduate education. A whole bunch of them came to Ohio State. We had, I don't know, 20 or 30 students, a lot of them in education. That's partly how I got a job, I think, because the faculty were completely overwhelmed with all those Turkish students. So a lot of my first students were from Turkey. They didn't all come to the U.S. They were sent to Australia, they sent to Germany, they sent to a variety of different places. And then when they finished, they all went back to Turkey. They're all there now. Think about the impact of 500 scholars coming into your universities from all over the world, bringing new ideas about teaching and learning. That to me is a very interesting social experiment. There are other faculty who didn't make that trip. They have their own students who they were bringing up through the ranks back in Turkey, and now you have these people coming in from the outside bringing new ideas. It'll be interesting to see the long-term impact that experiment has on the level of education. And of course they were concerned about the same things that you're concerned about and that we're concerned about, the quality of education that their children have. We all want our children to be well educated, to have a good life, and to be safe in the world. And so Turkey is withdrawn from a lot of international tests because their scores were so low they were embarrassed. And that was what part of the argument that I think they made to the World Bank to get the funding for that particular experiment. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You are sort of involved in the same thing from your country, but I don't know the scale of the number of scholars that are being sent out from Indonesia. But you represent the intellectual capacity of your country moving forward, and the ideas that you bring back will certainly influence how things develop in the Indonesian community.
Okay, so if there's no more question, okay, this was. So please join me in thanking Dr. Karen Irving for the marvelous presentation about her current visits to Philippines and Indonesia. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have